Hey, que la que hay, mi amigo? Rocky here from SpeakSpanishFaster.com, and in today's video, we are going to be discussing a very, very important topic, and that topic is reading in Spanish. How do we read in Spanish, or how should we read in Spanish? Now, I'm not actually going to show you like how to read each little word. I'm going to be showing you a process that you can use to help you read more in Spanish so that you can start speaking Spanish better. Now, reading is very, very important in Spanish. Even though a lot of people, they don't think it is. I mean, I've come across so many students when I ask them, what are they currently doing to speak Spanish better? And, sometimes they may say reading, but most of the time they'll say, oh, listening to podcasts, watching movies, listening to songs. And very rarely will they say, oh, I'm reading in Spanish. And then I will ask a student, well, why aren't you reading in Spanish? And they'll say, well, I just want to learn how to speak Spanish. I don't really care about being able to read or write in Spanish. But the thing is, when we learn a language, we don't just learn to speak a language. Like, we have to learn other aspects that are going to help our speaking ability. Think about when we're growing up in school. We can tell how advanced a student is, especially at the younger level, by their ability to read. And we know that students that have trouble picking up reading are probably have a learning disability, and they'll probably struggle at getting good grades or doing good work because they don't know how to read and they don't know how to engage with the text, or this may even prevent them from being able to engage with other students. Now, usually a lack of education or lack of being able to read will prevent students from being able to express themselves in the way that they fully want to express themselves. So it makes sense that we should be reading in a new language that we are trying to learn. And reading is very, very important. If you look at all the successful, pretty much many of the most successful people in the world, the richest guys in the world, the smartest people in the world, one thing these guys all have in common is that they read more than the average person, which makes sense, and that's why they're probably smarter than most average people. Well, it's the same thing when it comes to learning a language. If you want to improve your speaking ability and your comprehension, if you want to learn how sentence structure is, you should read. Okay, and again, I just pretty much explained the benefits of reading in Spanish, but those are the benefits. Like, if you can read or you start reading in Spanish, you'll learn more words, you'll improve your vocabulary, which we know having a long list of vocabulary words that you know is very important to becoming fluent in a language. You'll be able to recognize sentence structure patterns. You'll be able to when you follow the method that I show you, it's going to help you with your pronunciation, and it's going to help you with your ability to just overall master the Spanish language. So pay very close attention to today's video, because I'm going to be showing you a simple process that you can use that will drastically improve your Spanish speaking ability. And not only that, but I'll also give you a few more tips that can help you start reading more in Spanish. Okay, so the first thing is I have an iPad. Now, you don't have to have an iPad, but I think if you can afford one, it gives you the ability to carry a lot of books on a small device. I used to be one of those guys that carried like 3 to 4 books in my backpack when I was traveling and stuff. And I got the iPad, and it's been probably one of the best investments I've ever made. And I'm literally on my iPad all the time just reading. So the first thing that I do every time I purchase a book from Amazon, I buy the Kindle version and I buy the Audible version. And this is very important if you are learning a new language or trying to improve your speaking ability with a language and your comprehension ability. So I don't know how well you can see this, but let me go back. So I'll go to my Audible, and I have this book right here. This is the current book I'm reading. You can see I'm reading a few books right now. But the one in Spanish that I'm reading is called El Silencio de la Ciudad Blanca. All right, El Silencio de la Ciudad Blanca. This is, I actually just started reading this book, and so you can...
de que mis amigos podrían dárselo. Lo siguieron por toda Vitoria desde que saltó la nota.
So I listen at about 1.25 speed for Spanish. Sometimes I bump it even more, but with a book like this, that is more of a... I would say, like, when I'm reading English books that I'm just trying to like learn some pieces of information, I speed it up really quick. But a book like this that is more like entertainment, it's more like watching a show, I'm just reading the book. I listen a little bit slower, still quick, still faster than 1, because 1 speed is too slow. I think it's just really slow. But Who cares about all that? All right. So we have the Audible. You have the Audible version. Now the next thing is, like I said, I also buy it on Kindle. And this is really cool because as it's being read to me, I follow along and I make notes. So I have this little pen I got. You don't even need the pen. Have this pen. Let's say it's a word I don't know. Like some of these words, acosar, mi cuadrilla. So some of these words I wasn't too familiar with. And it's just like you might be thinking, well, you're a Spanish teacher. You should know every Spanish word. But I don't. And there's plenty of words in English. I read English books and I don't know every word. So what I do is I highlight them. And what this does is it essentially gives me vocabulary words to work with. And then the cool thing about the Kindle is I can click my notes up here and it'll have a list of all my highlights. So these are essentially my vocabulary words. And then I can export them as flashcards. So that's a cool feature, and that is pretty much why I love this Kindle, and I love it for any type of language learning. Now, the reason I love getting the Audible version with the book is because it helps with the pronunciation of words, and it helps you get a flow for intonation and things like that so that you can make sure you are saying the words properly and make sure that you are you have the right rhythm when you say them. That will really help you sound more like a native when you are speaking. So I'll show you another example. This is a book that I have in Italian, and you can see a lot more vocabulary words I've highlighted. But essentially, I can do the same thing where I can click my notes up here, and I can export this as flashcards, and I kind of have my vocabulary words right there. So that's the process I recommend. Now, if you can't do this, I would still recommend trying to get an Audible version. That method is a little more costly because you have to have Audible, which is like $14.99 a month. But it's worth it. It's worth it to be able to speak to speak a new language. Like, it's very worth it to me. Now, if you don't have a Kindle, you could get the book. You can get a book and listen to the Audible version while you follow along. Now, the reason why I like both is because it makes you focus. All right, it makes you dial in on what you're trying to do. I found for me, when I have just the Audible version, like, I just can't, my mind is wandering after like a minute or so. I'm doing other things while I'm listening to the Audible version. I know some people like that, so they can listen to Audible while they walk and stuff. But for me, it just doesn't work because if I'm walking, I'm thinking, and the book is just playing in the background, behind my mind's thoughts. So that's why I don't recommend just doing the Audible version. The reason why I don't recommend just reading the book by yourself, especially when you're getting started with learning the language, is because you probably aren't going to be saying the words right. And that is very key, is learning the proper pronunciation of every single word from the very, very beginning. That's why I recommend this system. Now, you don't need an iPad, but you will need some sort of Audible version, and the Audible app is a very easy way to get any book that you want on Audible, or the audio version. And you can either buy the books, you can download them online somewhere, you can get them for the Kindle, whatever you want to do. But that's the process that I highly, highly recommend. Now, I do recommend starting out. Let me pull this back up. I recommend when you're starting a new language, I recommend starting very, very basic. Start with children's books when you're learning a new language. So you can see, you can just tell from the cover of this book that I'm reading in Italian, which let's say this was Spanish. Let's say I was learning Spanish from scratch. I would have a Spanish children's book. The reason why is because it's a lot easier vocabulary to learn. And not only that, but when you use children's books, a lot of the vocabulary used in children's books are vocabulary that are going to be used on a daily basis. And to kind of put that point home, bring that point home, we have this book right here that I just showed you, the Spanish book. And there are some words like acosar a mi cuadrilla. Those are words that are probably not going to be used every single day. I won't say this is advanced, but this is like a regular reading book, So If I was just beginning, I would not start with this because it would be very, very difficult to even understand anything probably if you're just getting started. So start simple, start easy, just how we're children and we start reading easy books. Do the same thing for your Spanish. Start with short stories if you want. And again, try to get the audio version. That will really help you continue to improve your learning and hearing the words, learning how to properly say them, all those things that are very important when it comes to learning a language.